Thank you, Adam. Hi, everybody. Now we're going to go do one of our favorites. We do this every year. It is the highlight of our Yom Kippur afternoon. It's Stump the Rabbi. And here's how we're going to do it today. If you want to ask Rabbi Burt a question, if you want to stump the rabbi, please in chat, just type your name in chat, and then we will call on folks. So I'm going to chat for a little while you all decide whether or not you've got a question for the rabbi, and put your names in chat, and then we will call on you. We are going to do this for the amount of time we had planned, which was 25 minutes, so we're going to be running a little late this afternoon. So do I have any first questions for the rabbi? All right, you have to put your screen name, sorry, in the chat. Put your screen name, because that's the only way we can find you. And Myra, I see you.
Let me say something, okay? I have an answer. I don't have a question yet. I have an answer. I'm so happy to be here. It's so lovely to be here with all of you. And I want to express my own personal gratitude to the musicians for the awesome and transcendent music. I was in some other sphere of reality. So to prepare for this, I read 2 Jewish encyclopedias 3 times each. I read the Bible 4 times, and I took a course in humility. The textbook consisted of just 3 words: I don't know. So I've been practicing saying those 3 words out of all my well-known humility. So who's gonna stump me?
Okay, so hi, Rabbi Burt and Myra. I have a question. Why is the Shema our heavy hitter prayer?
The rabbis looked through the entire Torah, trying to discover what the most important belief was in the Torah. And they came to understand that that represented the central belief, the core of the belief of what they were striving to create as a religious faith. They came to understand that God is one. Exactly what that means requires a great leap of consciousness. But the corollaries of that are a little bit more easy to understand. If God is one, God is the creator of all. So if God is one, then the whole human family is one. And we are one with all of being. We're one with all of nature. There really is only one life. And each of us is a little part of that one life of the endless universe. Each of us is just a manifestation, a little point of life in the oneness of all life. So that's really what the affirmation of the Shema is about.
Thank you.
All right, I have a question. Rabbi, could you tell me, did Noah know Moses?
No. They did not know each other. But they would have been good friends had they known each other, I think.
Because Noah lived 900 years, no?
Yeah, but Moses came way after that.
Mm-hmm.
Way after that. So they didn't know each other, but maybe we can write a play imagining that Noah and Moses knew each other. Noah liked to drink, you know. So he'd probably take Moses out to a bar and they would have a nice conversation. Everybody is so well educated.
Hi, Bert. I have a question.
Yep.
Why is it that we have Simchas Torah where the Torah gets rewound, starts over? Then we have Rosh Hashanah, New Year. Why doesn't the Torah rewind to Genesis on Rosh Hashanah? Why is it not synced up?
That's a really good question. I don't know exactly why. It's just that the two are kind of just two separate things. Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year, and Simchat Torah represents the beginning of the reading of the Torah cycle. It's just two things that are not really synced up. I don't know exactly why they're not synced up, but they don't really have to be, I don't think. They're just two separate things.
I stumped the rabbi.
Yes, you did. You're going to go
Thank you.
to history as the first one.
Thank you.
Rabbi Burt, I have a question. It's about the Shema.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed many cover their face with
Mm-hmm.
their hands. I want to stand up straight and tall and yell the words out. So I'm curious about the practice of covering our faces.
Mm-hmm. The custom was to go as deep inward as possible and to yell out the words silently from inside yourself, and to close out any external stimuli that might interfere with your full awareness and full consciousness of what you're saying. So it's sort of like a silent scream within yourself. You should, when you are saying it, say it as if you're yelling. But it doesn't have to be yelled. It's kind of an as if you're shutting out all the sights and all the sounds and all the external stimuli that might interfere with your complete attention.
Okay, thank you.
All right, our next question, Dennis. A rabbi to rabbi question.
Dennis is going to ask me a hard question. He's going to try to stump me, I know that. Dennis was so stunned when I said that, he can't even speak.
Can you hear me? Oh, 1 second. Can you hear me?
It's very muffled.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. How are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank God, I'm fine.
That's my question.
I'm healthy.
No, in all seriousness,
I feel.
what's the difference between Reform Judaism and Revival Judaism?
Revival? I don't know revival.
Well, Rabbi Eva is a revival rabbi.
Renewal.
Renewal, I'm sorry, thank you.
Oh, I see.
The difference between reform and renewal. Ooh, are you stumped?
No, I'm not stumped. Let me just think for a second. The best way to put it briefly. First, let me say what Reform Judaism is. So traditionally, our ancestors believed that every single word of the Torah was true and unchangeable. That the Torah came from God at Mount Sinai to Moses, and Moses transmitted it word by word to Joshua, and Joshua to his disciples, and went on through the ages, never changing. So everything in the Torah is, one, absolutely true, and two, can never be changed because it comes from God. So in the middle of the 19th century, there were some people who began to look at the Torah differently, began to believe that it really was a human document written by people from a certain society, from a certain time. So since it wasn't divinely given as an eternal truth, it could be changed. And they were very concerned in those days in Germany and Western Europe about bringing the Jewish religion into consonance with the prevailing culture of the time. So that's reform. So renewal Judaism is pretty much the same thing. Next time Eva has a chance to speak, she'll correct me if I'm wrong. But renewal Judaism was a product of the creative spiritual imagination of a very great rabbi, Rabbi Zalman Schachter, who I knew as did Eva from many, many years ago when he was studying for a doctorate at the Hebrew University. So I got to know him pretty well. And I was a member of Renewal. One time I went to Brazil for a big conference that was held of Jewish Renewal. And I used to go every year to the summer meetings, the conferences. So what Rabbi Zalman was trying to do was to inject a certain kind of energy into a Reformed Judaism. Not necessarily the specific Reformed Judaism that emerged out of Germany and continued to develop in the United States and other parts of Europe. But he wanted to create a Judaism that had a certain spirit. He drew specifically on the spirit of Hasidism, which was a spirit of infusing Judaism with a sense of great joy and infusing Judaism with a sense of profound spirituality. Some people say that Reformed Judaism became too dry and too cold. In fact, some people called Reformed Jews God's frozen people, as opposed to God's chosen people. God's frozen people. So what Rabbi Zalman tried to do was to warm it up, to heat it up through this Hasidic spirit. And he was also very much open to the teachings of other faiths, particularly Tibetan Buddhism. He drew on that. So actually, when I started the Shul of New York, the Synagogue for Spiritual Judaism, it wasn't in any formal way a Jewish renewal synagogue, but I tried to bring that spirit, that energy into the synagogue. So it wasn't like some of the other Reformed synagogues, which are nameless, where people are sitting there and just reading the words of the prayer book like this, but that people are going crazy. And Adam and I, we drove people crazy. So we were jumping around and we had our own form of renewal. Dennis, is that a good answer?
Yes, but Reform Judaism, as you know, has changed a great deal.
Yeah.
If you look at the Reform synagogues in Manhattan, the people are no longer frozen.
Right.
Look at Central, look at Sharei Tefillah, look at the Village Temple. You know, there's a lot of spirit to those Reform congregations.
Yes, that certainly has happened over the last decade or so. I think it's quite recent in terms of my awareness. I think it's because of the Shul of New York. I think that we changed the whole Reform movement. Actually, we were the first Reform synagogue that had a band, Adam, right? And then all the Reform synagogues began to emulate us and copy us. So now there's no such thing as a Reform synagogue without a band. And that came from the Shul of New York. And the dancing we used to have, especially at the end of Yom Kippur, now in Reform synagogues, people are dancing. So I would have to say, now this is in all humility, of course, that the Shul of New York, no, I mean this really, the Shul of New York changed the scene of Reform Judaism.
Burt, how did you become so humble?
I don't know. I wish I could hear people laughing. If anybody is laughing.
So let me know when they announce it.
You know, we humorous people need that feedback, right? Don, you know what I mean, right? It was tough this year, wasn't it?
All right, the next question is from Jill. Jill, go ahead.
Jill.
Jill, go ahead and unmute.
Hello? Okay. Yeah, I'm ghosting under my wife's name. My name's actually Burt, but
Your name is Burt?
Rabbi, hi Rabbi.
Hi.
Hi, great to see you looking so healthy.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem, thank God.
Christianity, especially Roman Catholicism, has a very well-developed idea of heaven and hell. Can you please explain the Jewish conception of heaven and hell as they so exist?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's so interesting, actually. It's one of the most interesting things to me is that most Jews would say that Judaism doesn't have any belief in heaven or hell. It's not true. There are very extensive descriptions of both heaven and hell. I would say that from my experience talking to people, the majority of the Jewish people that I know don't believe in heaven or hell. So maybe they just don't want it to be part of the religious faith that they're rejecting. But if we take a look at the traditional liturgy, if you take a look at the Talmud, not liturgy, literature, if we take a look at the Talmud, there are extensive descriptions of heaven and hell. In Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, there are pages and pages and books and volumes about heaven and hell. So it's a really interesting misconception. I think it's, as I said before, I think it's because since Jews today, most Jews today, there are some Jews who do believe in heaven or hell, but my experience is that most Jews don't, and so they kind of have just pushed it out of the consciousness of what their faith is teaching.
Thank you.
Great. Our next question is from Rachel. Rachel Messer.
Rachel.
Hi, Rabbi Burt. It's so wonderful to see you.
Hi.
My question is, I've always been curious about some of the similarities of tradition and ritual among Jews and Muslims. And I've always been curious if there's a connection of why Muslims have halal food and Jews have kosher food. I was wondering if you know anything about that.
I don't know why Muslims have halal food. Jews have kosher food because of the certain interpretations of some biblical verses. All the laws of kashrut are not spelled out in the Torah, but as you know, the Torah was interpreted by the rabbis and was greatly expanded. One law became 20 laws, and 20 became 40, and 40 became 80 during this whole process of interpretation. I don't think that, I don't really know. I don't believe that the Quran talks about dietary laws, but I have to in all humility, tell you that my knowledge of Islam is extremely minimal. So I can tell you about the Jewish side, but I don't know why halal.
All right, our next question is from Karen.
Hi. Hello, Rabbi Burt.
Hi.
I think my question is more a personal question. It's not really a stumping question. But my question is, with, you know, centuries of oppression and slaughter, you know, genocides throughout history and currently in our political climate with the racism and the immigration, you know, oppression that's going on, women's rights, all sorts of things, and then globally, I think my question is, as we say things like the morning blessings when we're, you know, I'm reading and reciting about blessed are you, source of healing, who straightens the bent, who clothes the naked, liberates the bound. What has kept you a sense of hope throughout time, and is it even realistic? Does the Bible, or are we supposed to feel that at some point everyone will be treated equally and suffering will end? And I think that's my question. Thank you.
I think that these prayers are visions of the future. In a literal way, they're not true now, of course, right? But I think that Judaism has always emphasized a vision of the future that would be a time of human realization, a time of fulfillment of all the human potentiality that was implanted within us from the very beginning by God. That little by little that would come to fruition. It was particularly represented by the idea of Mashiach, the Messiah, who was also a kind of symbolic figure that represented the future in which human potentiality could be fulfilled and realized. So it was what the rabbi was talking about hope and about what we were treated to this morning in terms of people's ideas, that hope is truly at the very heart of Judaism. Hope for a future that will be a future in which human intellect and the human spirit will flourish. This, of course, is a great act of faith. Faith means that we have no evidence for that, especially, right? But faith means taking the little that we can see and extrapolating that so that we can understand it as a possibility for all the world. Life is really very good, you know. I am, like all of us, deeply saddened by what's going on today. But it's only part of what's going on. All the people that I know are good and kind people. They're generous and giving and caring and loving. And that's really what the nature of the human being is. And that can be cultivated through the years. If we see that within a great number of human beings, there's no reason to think that that can't be the human state, the human condition of everybody. There's no essential difference between one group of people and the other. So I think that's the evidence for me. It's not completely blind faith, so to speak. It's my seeing the goodness and the lovingness and the kindness of millions and millions and millions and millions of people. So hope is not just a rosy picture. Hope is a real possibility of the human future.
All right, Pete had a follow-up question.
Okay, this will have to be the last question, I'm afraid.
Oh, but then I've got one other that was in the chat. So let Pete go, and then if you don't mind, Bert, can we get squeeze one
No,
more
I
in?
would love to.
Hi, Rabbi Burt. Great to see you.
Hi.
Just following up about the heaven and hell question. Do Jews believe that there's a being like a devil running the show down there? And in heaven, are there people hanging out in clouds? Or what is the perception, according to Judaism, of these places?
Well, again, it's the kind of thing that we would say doesn't exist within Judaism. But if you look at the Talmud, which is the classical source of Jewish belief, there are evil spirits, there are demons who are running around sneakily all over the place. There are angels. The angels are not on clouds, and they're not little babies with wings. Those are not the Jewish angels. Those are Christian angels, actually. The Jewish angels have different kinds of forms. Often they appear like human beings. So I actually have met a few in my life. They look like people, but I can see right through them, and they're not. So there are these beliefs, but I think with the onset of Reform Judaism, an age of great rationalism, the rabbis of that time, of that extremely rational period of human history, wanted to rid Judaism of all these beliefs that appear to be superstitious and irrational, actually. But the tradition was not like all traditions of ancient times. It didn't adhere to the canons of logic and rationality. It was something entirely different. So I personally have met some demons, and I have met some angels. So from like you have, right? Pete, I bet you have, right? So we know that there are demons and angels, right?
Bert, one last question. So Monica Wolfson asked in the chat, is there a simple prayer to say last thing at night or first thing in the morning, or is that just the Shema?
Well, it would be the Shema, but there are extensive prayers to say, actually. There's a whole page of prayers for before going to sleep. There's a whole page of prayers waking up in the morning, including the Shema. It's the most important thing to say, but if I were to suggest a prayer personally, I don't really have the right to do that, but I'll do it anyway, that I would say the prayer should be, thank you. Thank you for the day and all that it held. Whatever it was, thank you for the day. And when people wake up in the morning, to say also, thank you for the day that's coming with all of its possibilities and adventures and unknowns and this is going to be the last word I have to say, so I have to think of a really good word, right? With all of its mystery. It's one of my favorite words. The day to come in all of its mystery. So Matt was the only one who stumped me. First time in 50 years. Can you believe it, Matt?
Mazel tov, Matt. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, Matt.
What's the prize?
Yes, he wins a prize.
What's my prize?
It's a CD of the new CD of the band.
Thank you. All right.
All right, Rabbi Burt, thank you. Wonderful,
Nice
as
working with
always.
everybody.
Thank you.
I enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.
And,
Well done. Thank you, Rabbi.
Back. It is truly my privilege, my honor, to introduce a very, very special friend who has joined us from Pasadena, California, Rabbi Dr. Jason Mann. Just want to share that when I went to my first orientation for rabbinical school, It was Jason's also. And we met each other then. And being able to walk the journey as adults who have had previous careers. Jason was an oncologist in Boston and then had moved to Portland, Oregon. He became a full chaplain and then succeeded gloriously in rabbinical school. He is a teacher of Torah. He has much to offer, and I am just so delighted to invite you to come here and join us. He's been with us the last couple years for High Holidays. What a gift. And he's going to enlighten us about the story of Jonah. Welcome, Jason.
Good. Well, it's really a very special day, and I feel so honored to be here and what a privilege to be here. And it's been an amazing service and a day of just a very special day for me, one of the most memorable Yom Kippurs I've ever experienced. So I wanted to thank Eva. You are really blessed and lucky to have her and your shul band and all of the wisdom that your group seems to impart. It's just amazing to be here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So the book of Jonah is very complex. I thought it would be good to just start by reviewing some of the details, the outline of the story. You know, the story starts with Jonah being instructed to go to Nineveh to warn the people of the city. Soon after Jonah's instruction comes to him to go to Nineveh, Jonah boards a ship to flee from before God. That's what the Torah says. Instead of going to Nineveh, Jonah travels to Jaffa and boards a ship to travel to Tarshish, which is on the other side of the world. As soon as the ship leaves port, it's engulfed by a storm. And actually, the Midrash says that the sailors on the ship saw that only their ship was in the midst of a storm. All the ships around them were on calm waters. The sailors and the captain try heroically to save the ship, while Jonah goes to sleep and hides in the cabin below deck. As the storm rages on, Jonah realizes that he's responsible for the storm because he's not followed God's command to preach to Nineveh. He emerges from his cabin to speak to the sailors and tells them, "It's me. I'm responsible for the storm." The shipmates still don't know what to do, but they decide to cast lots to determine what to do, and the guilty lot falls on Jonah. He's responsible for the storm. Jonah asks the sailors to throw him overboard to save the ship, but these are really righteous Gentiles, and they still have a great deal of reluctance to throw Jonah overboard. But eventually they do. And once Jonah is thrown overboard, the waters calm, and Jonah sinks deeper into the ship until he's swallowed by a large fish. Jonah spends 3 days in the belly of the fish and prays to God. He actually doesn't pray to be saved, he just prays, which is a good model for us. God hears Jonah and saves him by having the fish spit Jonah out alive on dry land. Once again, the instruction comes to Jonah to go to Nineveh and warn them of their impending disaster. But after given a second chance, Jonah finally goes to Nineveh and delivers his message. And wow, Jonah is the most successful prophet that ever lived. He doesn't even get to the midst of the city. He just gets 3 days in, and the Ninevites repent, and they're forgiven by God. In the last chapter of the book, Jonah sits outside the city, and the sun beats down very strongly on him. He's sitting in the bright sun, and he watches as the Ninevites start to repent and are forgiven. God then causes a plant called the kikion to grow, and it provides shade and shelters him from the sun. Overnight, however, God sends a worm which causes the plant to shrivel up and die, and Jonah has lost the comfort of the shade, and he's beside himself with frustration. Part of his frustration is because he lost the shade, and part of it is he's so disappointed that the evil Ninevites have been spared so easily. In the last book of the words of the book, God teaches Moses, Jonah, An important lesson God's always teaching, right? About the importance of compassion and forgiveness. John tells Jonah, "You took pity on the Kikion, for which you did not toil, nor did not make it grow, which one night came into being and the next night perished. Now should I not take pity on Nineveh, the great city in which there are so many? There are more than 120,000 people who do not know their right hand from their left, and many beasts as well." So why is the story told as the Haftorah on Yom Kippur? Well, on the surface, it's essentially a story about forgiveness. Despite their previous evil behavior, the evil Ninevites are forgiven after declaring a fast, sitting on ashes, and putting on sackcloths. God forgives them because they have repented and sought forgiveness. Beyond the dramatic mercy God shows Nineveh, God also forgives his reluctant prophet Jonah. Jonah has rebelled and refused to go to Nineveh, but God forgives him by rescuing him from the belly of the fish and gives him a second chance to fulfill his divine mission. This is our hope too as we enter Yom Kippur. We hope that our repentance will lead to forgiveness, the way the Ninevites were forgiven. We also hope that we can be like Jonah and be given a second chance to do the right thing. But with your permission, I'd like to look a bit deeper at the book of Jonah and specifically explore Jonah's reluctance to follow God's command, which is actually the dramatic fulcrum on which the story turns. I'd like to explore this idea because in many ways we respond to painful events or difficult tasks in our life in the same way Jonah did. Many of us travel to our own metaphorical cities of Tarshish when confronted by challenges. We try and escape and avoid difficulties rather than facing them head on. This is the spiritual challenge we face on Yom Kippur. It is the challenge of doing the difficult work the process of repentance requires. Yom Kippur is a time when we try to deeply examine our lives, searching for ways that we have missed the mark. Once we find the ways that we did not bring our best into the world, we need to commit to making the needed changes in our lives. Unfortunately, the search for our missteps and the commitment to change is not easy. It takes real work and real commitment. That's the challenge. The Hebrew word for teshuvah has more than one English translation, as many words in Hebrew. Besides repentance, the word teshuvah can also mean return. This is the translation that I find to be most meaningful. It's meaningful to me because I understand my journey through the holiday season as a process of returning to the best of who I am. Sometimes I'm troubled by the question of who I am or what I am. Self-doubt and self-critique clouds my vision and troubles me. Our tradition has an important answer to this common type of painful self-analysis. The answer is found in the belief that our original soul, original self, is pure and good. This idea that our soul is pure and that original self is good is expressed in many ways in our liturgy. Actually, this morning we sang the words of the prayer, Elohai Neshama. And each week we sing this prayer to validate this very important belief. The soul that you, my God, have given me is pure. You created it, you formed it, you breathed it into me. When I wonder about whether I can return to this place of goodness, the words of this prayer always comfort me. The words comfort me because I realize I don't have to remake myself from scratch to find that pure soul that God has given me. I need just to remove the obstacles and heal the wounds that prevent me from bringing the best of who I am into the world. Many of our traditions suggest that our teachers of our tradition suggest that we're each given a piece of godliness, that we're each tasked with bringing this God's gift into the world. Of course, there are times when it's difficult for me to believe my original soul is pure, or that I've been given some divine gift. Whenever I doubt that my original soul is good and I need to search for ways to embrace the spiritual truth about who I am, there's an easy way I do it. I spend some time with my grandchildren. Children are great teachers. By watching them, I have the opportunity to witness their original souls bursting with enthusiasm, creative energy, and love for life. It's a wonderful reminder of who I can be. All I have to do is lift the anchors that held me back. My grandchildren show me the potential of each human heart as they so openly and so easily express theirs. So let's turn back to Jonah and see how this text teaches us the importance of returning to ourselves as part of the process of repentance. Jonah's difficulties arise in the boat to Tarshish because he tried to run away from who he was. Jonah is a prophet. The gift of prophecy was given to him by God at birth. Despite being given this extraordinary gift of prophecy, Jonah tried to run away from who he truly was. Didn't work out so well for him, did it? You can ask the sailors on the ship, or you can ask the great fish. It really doesn't work to run away. It doesn't work to run away from who you are. In Jonah's story and in all our lives, God finds ways to direct us back and facilitate our return. On Yom Kippur, we stand as our true self, unadored, in white, many of us, vulnerable, exposed. We may have fled from our obligations we made to family and friends, but on Yom Kippur, our flight from ourselves has ended. We're coming in for a gentle landing. With God and community, hold this thing in a loving embrace. The goal of our prayers and our fasting should be to rid ourselves of the impediments that have prevented us from finding our true self and our true gifts. Our task today and every day of our life is to not get distracted or head in the wrong direction, the way Jonah did. Our challenge is to search our hearts and minds so that we can once again connect to the divine loving energy of the universe and let it guide us to the places we need to go. This process of return is available to all of us if we open our hearts and our minds to the power of God and to our inherent goodness, and make a commitment to self-reflection and inquiry. Had Jonah studied the Torah, he might have learned an important lesson about the process of return from the other Jonah in the Torah's narrative. You know, there's another Jonah. It occurs very early in the Torah's narrative. It's in the story of Noah and the ark. You might remember that at the end of the many long nights of rain, Noah was trying to determine whether the land was dry and habitable. To help in the process, he first sends out a raven. The raven flies back and forth, never returns. The raven does not know the importance of returning. In the verses that follow, Noah sends out Jonah, a dove. The dove keeps returning to the ark. When the dove returns a second time, she brings an olive branch to demonstrate that the land is now habitable. This story of the dove is the Torah's way of teaching us the importance of fulfilling our mission in life and expressing fidelity to who and what we are. This is the lesson that Jonah learns when he's saved from the whale and is given a second chance. The dove in the Noah story knows what her divine mission is and fulfills it. She does not need a second chance. She keeps returning to the ark to inform Noah of the status of the earth. The human Jonah in our book that we read today learned the hard way. I'd like to finish with one more important moment in the Jonah story that teaches us the importance of returning to our true self on this special day. Jonah's moment of self-reflection and discernment was facilitated by the sailors on the ship at the moment they all experienced great danger. When Jonah emerges from the deck, the sailors ask him a number of questions to try and understand who the stranger is that has caused all this problems to fall on them. They ask him some questions. They ask him, who are you? What's your occupation? What's your country? Who are your people? And Jonah doesn't answer each question. He just answers with the most essential part of his identity that he can never flee from. Here are his words. I am a hero. I am a Hebrew. I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who hath made the sea and the dry land. And he is a hero. Yom Kippur is the one day a year that tolerates no superficiality. We're given the opportunity to encounter our most quintessential self. Once we arrive at the recognition of our true identity on this special day, we might want to use the same words that Jonah used when he was asked who he was by the sailors. Ivri Anochi. I am a hero, a Hebrew, and a hero. I guess I'm stuck on that idea. My hope for all of us on this special day, that it will be a day of return, a day of returning to the things that really matter. Your relationships with all the people in your life, your relationships with this wonderful community, the relationships with the deepest understanding of who you are, and your relationship with God. So I'm going to play a little music, and then if there's some time, I'll ask you all some questions. If not, we'll move on.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are born and reborn again.
I always like to do a little unpacking of the teaching. And I created a few questions which I guess you can, maybe the host can unmute people who have reflections on some of the questions. I think I'd like to start with the most important question, which was this idea of how do we express our Jewish identity? You know, that's what Jonah came up as the most essential part of who he was at the end of when he was asked by the sailors. So do some people have some thoughts about what the most essential part of the Jewish identity is, how they understand it and how they express it in their lives?
First of all, thank you for framing the Jonah story in such a beautiful way and to tying it back into returning, turning, and returning. So I just happened to ask that question of my daughters yesterday, and I really felt very aligned when my older daughter said, I love expressing my Jewish identity now, which she hadn't for years. And she said, it's about my values. My values are good human values. You know, I see them all in my religion. I see them all in our tradition. And the other thing that she so loved is that our Jewish life is based on a cycle of time. And that the cycle offers us so many psycho-spiritual opportunities to move through the seasons and through our full spectrum of emotions, and that Judaism acknowledges that and honors that.
Nice. my son, who doesn't do anything Jewish, his children who aren't being raised Jewish by their mother, said to me the other day, "Well, Daddy isn't Jewish." And I said, "Your daddy is Jewish. He was born Jewish and he'll always be Jewish. And anytime he decides to return to more Jewish practice, he will be welcomed. You can't undo your Judaism. It's always there. You always carry it with you." So. Any other thoughts on what's an important way you'd like to express your Jewish identity? Kind of a deep question.
Go ahead, Audrey.
Oh, well, I was answering the previous question, but I guess they both go together. Being a member of the shul, and particularly being active during this pandemic and being able to participate in all of these programs, has really given me an idea of what my Jewish identity is, and I feel comfortable with, and ways in which I feel that I can really authentically express it.
Patricia, go ahead.
Thank you. I would say the thing that speaks most to my heart in terms of expressing my Judaism is that my mandate is to leave the world better than I found it.
Tikkun olam. Nice, beautiful. Thank you.
I expressed my Judaism through actions, through rituals, through the lighting of Shabbat candles, through the building of Sukkot, through the mandate to give tzedakah. By doing Jewish things, by observing Jewish customs and rituals, I manifest my Judaism.
Nice. Thank you, Rabbi. Someone put in the chat box that they express their Judaism by questioning everything. And I think that's a very, very essential part of Jewish being. And we're a questioning people, we're a God-struggling people. When I did my chaplaincy training, it was one of the things I had to teach the other chaplain students about Judaism, that they didn't understand the questioning. That's a big part of Jewish practice. Thank you for that, Sharon, and the Hebert family.
I think the mitzvahs are very important of my Jewish identity. And there are moments in the street, somebody needs something, or it comes to me that I should do something kind to somebody who's been unkind to me that moment. And it resonates with the idea of the mitzvah.
Yeah.
We are, I think, the eternal outsiders. And so we can look at the society without being completely bound by its norms. It's very much a part of what the Jew is historically, and today as well. It's what accounts for the creativity and the innovation that so often comes from Jews, because we can see the world from a certain objective point of view as eternal outsiders. And we will always be these eternal outsiders. We will never be within any society in the diaspora. Of course, in Israel, we're insiders, but Israel itself is an outsider nation. So some of that still prevails even for Israel.
Thank you, Rabbi. I'm going to read one of the chat box response. My girlfriend says Jewishness is in our eyes. This is Jeremy Blinn. That we've suffered and overcome, continue to persevere. We're still here. Yeah, Thank you. Beautiful. Yeah, we're still here. And we will be here. Yeah.
So I think I honor my Jewishness when I remember my parents, my grandparents, their journeys, what they taught me, what they gave me, and just that connection that I have to them.
Yeah. There are two other very essential, I'll be with you, Lisa, in a minute. There's two other very essential teachings in the book of Jonah that express important Jewish values. One is universalism, because all of the real good people in the Jonah story who do things the way they're supposed to are the Gentiles, the sailors, the Ninevites. So there's a real universalism in Judaism that I think is an important message in our tradition. And there's also this balance between justice and mercy. And the book ends with, even though Jonah is the big strict justice man, the book ends with this balance falling on mercy. And I think that's really a big message over that we need to take home with us on Yom Kippur. Lisa, I'm sorry I interrupted you, please.
Is it me? Oh, that Lisa. Sorry, Lisa. Go ahead. If it's singing, it's you. Are we singing? It's you. That's how we know which Lisa. I was going to say, I think at this point, it's really a walking the walk thing, meaning it's so much a part of my soul and of who I am and of how I perceive the world. It moves into every single fabric of my life and every part of my being. And I find that people are attracted to me. I mean, as you know, in business and friends and whatever, but souls gather and they're kindred souls, and some are Jewish or some are not. One of my favorite souls is, I have a, what's he called? When they're Catholics, what are they called? Fathers.
Priest.
There's a circus father who's the Jewish father for all the circus people, but he's father for the Jews too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because of that it's so much a part of just the soul, and that's how I express it, just by being.
Nice. Thank you. Beautiful.
I do stuff too.
I think we manifest, can you hear me? I think we manifest our Judaism also through the dedication to Tikkun Olam. There is a statement in the Talmud that although we are not obligated to complete the task, we are not free to ignore it altogether. And that's the notion that everybody must do his or her share. And that is a Jewish responsibility.
Well, thank you all for all your beautiful responses. And I think when you return to yourself, when you find that essential part of yourself this holiday, when you make that return, you'll find a wealth of wonderful ideas, wonderful customs, wonderful rituals, wonderful memories that all have been implanted with you as you've journeyed through your life, either with Jews or as a Jew. Baruch Hashem, God bless you all.
Thank you, Rabbi Jason. It's wonderful to have you here to guide us in this thought-provoking way of extending the Jonah story into ourselves, more opportunities for self-reflection, for self-identification. And we bless you.
Oh, thank you.
All the same. Amen.